Hey team, meet Skimpies, the organic cotton undie made like a liner. Skimpies are for all of us who love going commando but can't quite pull it off like we used to. You just pop Skimpies directly into your pants, press firmly, and it's like you're wearing underwear without the gnarly panty lines. No PFAs, no synthetics, no irritation. Just clean, breathable, organic cotton where you need it most. Created by Bette Bentley, inspired by her own journey as an absolute babe who wanted to live that commando life, but without the UTIs. Go to skimpies.com to get started. Every peach deserves its day, and Skimpies is here to help make it happen. Skimpies, we just want to be in your pants. Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. Okay. Guys, we are trying something a little different this week. Last week was another milestone for the pod, 75 episodes. Most of those episodes are with guests. Either they were here in the closet or virtually online. Since starting the pod 76 weeks ago, I have gained so many more teammates out in the ether. People who haven't been here since the beginning, but who I want to bring into the fold of the long-standing conversation that develops week by week, guest by guest. I'm hoping to bring back an episode from the archive every month. Just like thinking back to different moments in our lives, listening back to these older episodes is a study in growth for me. What was I like then? What kind of time was I having? What was on my mind? How nutso was my sound production or line of questioning? How am I doing things differently now? And what I found with this episode, episode 6, was that I feel really proud of myself. I wasn't expecting that. I've learned how to make sound come out of both headphones now. I was obsessed with collagen, but maybe I've given up on it temporarily now. Some of the themes and ideas that Tracy brought up back then have really only come more into focus for me than when we first talked in 2024. The tension of navigating two people's careers while raising kids, how we can both love our parents deeply and recognize how we might want to do things differently than they did growing up. There's so much here, and somehow it's aged like fine wine. This first re-release was a fan favorite when it first came out. I think it struck a chord with so many because of how a shared passion between a mom lost too soon and her daughter shaped a life trajectory in a laser-like focus on a vision and a dream. It made us all feel nostalgic about the role of Broadway in our childhoods. Assuming you went to summer camp, you know? I think it also resonated with so many people because it was deeply honest and vulnerable about this chapter of life. In a way that doesn't diminish aspirations to be a great parent or to be a great professional. It just kind of holds that both things are true, both aspirations are valid, and it's just uncomfortable to navigate these waters. The discomfort doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. It means we're traveling through a system not designed for us to succeed at both. As a reminder, today we are hanging out with Tracy Aftergood. Tracy is an Emmy-nominated producer who focuses specifically on telling stories in stunning documentaries that chronicle the complexity of what it means to be human, what it means to be passionate, oftentimes what it means to be a multifaceted woman. Her most recent doc, streaming on Hulu, chronicles the story of DVF and shows her in all her facets: artist, businesswoman, lover, and mother. Tracy herself is a study in complexity. She's a mom of 3, an ambitious storyteller, and a woman discovering new facets of her own humanity with every story she hopes to tell. Enjoy. Okay. We're just like being cash.
This is great.
This is a very informal. This is the opposite of every experience you will have ever had doing an interview. Yeah. Welcome to the closet.
Thank you.
I should
so
say
much.
First. And I honestly, I know, like, you are extremely put together. I just knew. Normally I put on my best pajamas looking outfit for you,
which are fabulous,
because it's either like a muumuu or pajama adjacent for me.
I feel like pajamas. I feel like you picked up on my vibe. I'm admiring your kind of set right now.
Like, this is somehow a mom of 3 who looks very put together.
It gives me a little bit of relief if I can put myself together.
What time did you wake up today?
Well, today I had a pretty bad migraine last night. So my husband, who's home for a week from set, thankfully took care of all the girls and all the things. So I actually got up at 7:19, which was
7:19?
incredibly late.
And you still
Today.
look like this. I mean, it's
I
like 10 in the
tried.
morning.
I tried, I wanted to put my best foot forward for you and for the listeners who will not see what I look like.
She also smells good, everybody. It's just really, but I'm happy to have you here. I like to know everybody's career trajectory. And part of what I'm seeing, because you are put together when I'm doing my IMDb deep dive, is like there's one section where it says actress, right? And I was like, oh, like I could see that. She's beautiful. Like, let me look. Puppeteer. It says you were a puppeteer.
I was a puppeteer. I think it's kind of funny. I've thought about maybe expunging that from IMDb, but I also think it's so out there that it kind of needs to live there forever. I had a professor at Emory, and he was producing a sock puppet noir film, and
Sure.
I say
of course,
that
my phone goes off, by
right,
the way.
in full seriousness, called The Lady from Stockholm. And they needed some extras in a scene where they were protesting Nittler. And so I was holding a sign as a sock puppet, and it said "Down with Nittler." And I'm very proud of the work I did on that film.
Could be an actress. Says she's an actress. Oh, she's a puppeteer.
She's a puppeteer.
She's a puppeteer. So tell me your sort of journey and your arrival at this place of, you're not just a producer, you're a producer of documentaries, which is a very specific type of job.
Yes.
So how did we get here?
Well, I think it all starts with growing up in New York and my mom taking me to my first Broadway show when I was 4 years old to see Big River. And from then on, she took me to the theater once or twice a month, and I saw everything. And so musical theater and plays became the lens through which I saw the world as a very precocious only child. And I was just so impacted by the art of storytelling and how storytelling can inform the way we see the world. So cut to many years later, I went to Emory and I studied political science and economics and art history and all these things. And I was going to be a human rights attorney because I cared deeply about issues around social justice, human rights, etc. But I'd always wanted to work in a creative field. And so I thought, okay, I love film, I love media, and I really like having the ability to share stories that might inspire people. And so I thought documentaries could be the way to do that. And it only took me, I don't know, let's say 10 more years to get to that point where I had worked in enough jobs in the entertainment industry to be able to go out on my own and say, I'm actually going to commit to telling other people's stories that I think will be of value and I think will be of interest. And that's kind of how I got there.
Now, musical theater and little Jewish kids.
Yeah.
What is it? Because we just put out a Spotify playlist that's like the summer camp hit list, and half of it is Rent. Because there's something about, I don't know what it is, but culturally, we just love a musical.
We love a musical. I think anytime that characters can just break into song, like who doesn't want or need that in their life?
I think a lot of people would say they don't need it, but I
maybe
I am not one of them.
They don't know that they need it.
Yeah.
Like I think my husband now has a greater appreciation and love for musicals just because he's constantly forced to listen to the Broadway channel.
Sure.
And Broadway hits on Spotify. And my daughters are all singing in unison in our 3-row SUV. And I don't know. I think life can be very serious. And there are obviously some very weighty musicals.
Sure.
But it's like, I don't know, how do you not smile and have joy and just, are in awe of someone's incredible musical performance on stage?
My friends and I on the group chat the other day were laughing because we're talking about how we used to do these like really serious performances with like our hairbrushes to songs from Rent, which is obviously about like the AIDS crisis in New York.
Yeah.
Before we were born. And our husband, like we're performing to our husbands who are just like, what the fuck are you doing? This is why.
Well, two, you know, one of my favorite musicals, obviously Rent, very seminal, saw it 3 times growing up. And then my absolute favorite, most influential play that I ever saw was Angels in America, right?
Ooh.
Tony Kushner. So when my husband and I moved into our first house, I've clearly saved all my playbills in like a bin, and I have hundreds of playbills. And so I had two framed. I have one from Rent framed, and I have one from Angels in America. And my husband used to call it like the wall of AIDS. And he was like, do you think we could maybe put something else on this wall? And I was like, what? I was like, this is just, it's just my childhood.
It's just our childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think kids are really taken with deep, serious things because I think adults sometimes shelter you from said things. So you have even more of a curiosity. I mean, I was obsessed with like the assassination of JFK because I saw that Oliver Stone movie probably way before I should have.
Yeah.
And was like fascinated for a solid year. So yeah. You know, it's all the things that lead you to making documentaries.
Now, you as a kid in New York, are we talking about the city, the suburbs?
Both. So I grew up in Westchester, 25 minutes outside of New York City. And I went to school there until middle school. And when my parents split up, my father moved to the Upper East Side. And then I ended up going to high school in the city. And I went to a school called Fieldston, which was extraordinary and, you know, really helped shape me in many ways. So I'm really grateful for that experience.
It's kind of a crazy time to enter the New York scene as a kid, that age-wise, because... Yeah. You know, I talked about this with somebody else we had on, this idea of what a New York City kid is.
Right.
They're sophisticated. They're going to see stuff on Broadway. But like also life happens to them a little bit faster. They're independent a little bit sooner.
Right. Well, it was really interesting because, you know, I was from Westchester. So going to a school where 99% of the kids lived in the city primarily. And I lived mostly in Westchester with my mom and spent so much of my time in the city. I had a lot of those experiences, but, I would also say the friends that I was close with, they were like normal kids, like living on the Upper West Side.
They were nice
Like
kids.
I will just say, like they were nice, normal kids. Like nothing was crazy. Like this wasn't like Gossip Girl or like Euphoria. You know, I mean, I'm just being completely candid. But things do move quicker. But I just found that my friends happened to also be like really interested and parents did interesting things. And so it was just nice to have, you know, friends in high school who, were like with it.
It's I grew up in Florida. Also, it is so schwitzy in here, guys, and I fear it might get schwitzier, but we're just going to do our best. We're going to power through.
Listen, I put some primer on today, some anti-humidity spray.
I put on tinted moisturizer for you. You have
to. You look wonderful.
That's all we have going on. And some after effects of last week's microneedling. That's what we have on my face.
Got to bring that collagen.
We have to. We're drinking it. We're fomenting it. We're like doing everything with the collagen right now.
Yeah.
We're trying our best. Okay. So at what point in your journey figuring out, you know, that this is ultimately where you want to end up, do you move to LA?
So I graduated from Emory in May of 2004, and I moved to Los Angeles in July of 2004, just a couple months later.
Okay.
I had applied to one program to get my master's in producing when I realized I was not going to be an attorney after taking the LSATs. And I got in, so it was the Stark program for producing at USC. And so I packed everything up, and I moved to Los Angeles when I was 22 years old by myself.
And were you just like, mom and dad, like, you got to trust me on this. You're going to have to bankroll me for a little bit while I figure it out?
Well, a little more complicated than that. So my mom passed away.
I was going to ask when that happened.
So my mom passed away 3 days after I graduated from Emory.
Oh, fuck.
So she was killed in a hit and run in Midtown. So to really take it to a serious note on this podcast. So I kind of always say that I was like pushed off a cliff into adulthood at 22. So it was really, I mean, life-changing is kind of an understatement, but it definitely changed the trajectory of my life in many ways that I had not anticipated. And many people thought, oh, is she still going to move to California? And what's going to happen? And I thought it would completely be in vain not to pursue this dream.
That in part, foundationally was something that you created with your mom.
Completely. And my mom was someone who taught me how to dream, who just gave me the most unconditional support and love throughout my entire life, and was always the person when I presented her with a new dream or endeavor or idea, she was like, great. How are you going to figure it out? How can I help you? She was always that person. So I said, you know what? Not only am I going to move to Los Angeles, I'm going to give this opportunity every ounce of my being, and try not to fall apart along the way, which I did in many ways, just not publicly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of crazy. So, but I will say it was very helpful for people who have lost loved ones to move to a completely different city.
Interesting.
Where I was not bombarded with memories constantly. I mean, obviously your own psyche is its own challenge, but everything was new. And that was very helpful. That was really helpful. And the head of my program, Larry Turman, who passed away, who was the most extraordinary producer, mentor, human being. When I started the program, I remember saying to him, I am dealing with this really big life event that I did not really tell anyone about. And so if I have to fly to New York to deal with things regarding my mom's estate and all this other stuff, I don't want you to think I'm not committed to the program, but that's what's going on. And he then said, like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you talking to anyone? I said I wasn't. And he referred me to his wife, who was a therapist, who then referred me to an extraordinary therapist who basically helped change my life as well for the better as I was kind of dealing with grief and all of that stuff.
And we're going to get back to her because she comes back into the picture later, right?
She does, which is crazy.
So we're going to get back to her. And so this is obviously a monumental loss, somebody you're extremely close with. Did she ever remarry?
No, my mom never remarried. My dad did. He's now remarried, but at the time of my mom's passing, he had a new partner and they lived together in Manhattan. So my mom had not moved on, which, I think in hindsight was kind of sad for me that she didn't get to experience, another relationship that fulfilled her in that way.
Yeah.
But that's why, every day, it sounds trite, but every day is a gift. It's not a given. So, I think from that, I have such perspective.
And this is why we wake up and we make ourselves put together.
Kind of. I had this badass mom who built her own business, raised me, on her own for a good amount of time. And my dad is wonderful too. And he and I have reconnected and are very close now. But she taught me what it was to be, a woman of integrity and purpose, someone who helps others, is here. She always said, leave the world better than you found it. Whatever that means to you, that's up to you. But that was really something that she imparted to me constantly. So that's why, I get up, I put myself together. I knew I was sitting down with you, so I wanted to give you my best self.
And she didn't know I was going to be in my PJs. So this is huge because it's scary enough moving to a new place. I did it at the same age, but I did have my mom I could call on the phone saying, I'm scared. I'm in Hong Kong by myself. What am I doing? You did it really on your own because dads are great and dads are really special in lots of ways if you have a dad in your life. But there's something about that thing when you have a relationship with your mom where you are calling her every minute to tell her what you had for lunch or like the dumb thing your teacher said or whatever. That's how I am with my mom. To all of a sudden not have that and be in a new place is really fucking hard. I can only imagine. You're trying to do this really hard thing in an extremely competitive program because the USC programs are. And where in this whole timeline and picture does your husband enter the picture?
So this is kind of a great story. So my mom and I used to go to Turks and Caicos on vacation around Christmas time. And it was a very special place for her. She was a really big scuba diver. And it was just, a place where we had many incredible memories. So she passes away in 2004. And a year later, my friend Jenny, who I met at Turks and Caicos when she was on vacation with her dad, because her parents were divorced. So she was there with her dad. I was there with my mom. She went to Duke. I went to Emory. We were both from New York. So we remained in touch. And she called me and she said, what are you doing for the holidays? I said, I don't know. I was kind of like, I'm not sure what I'm doing. And it was really hard not being with my mom. And she said, okay, we're going to Turks and Caicos. You're coming with us. And amazing. I said, great, let's do it. So that is where I met Braden. So Braden and his family were supposed to be in Cancun, and there was a hurricane. And the hotel said to them, pick any other of our resorts. And his family said, I think, oh, well, Turks and Caicos has a good tennis program, so we'll go there. They're big tennis people. And so we met at Club Med in Turks and Caicos. And this is a true story. We were both reading scripts by the pool. I was working at Paramount during the day and going to school at night. Braden was working for a company that had a deal at Universal. And we're the only two people like working on vacation. And so that was pretty hilarious. And and so we met there. We exchanged numbers and emails, and then went on a date, when we got back, maybe a month later. And that was almost 20 years ago.
Wait, this is fucking crazy. So your mom passes away.
Yeah.
So you're 22, 23 at this point by the time you go to Turks. And you've just committed to this new chapter of your life.
Yeah. In
a new place where you can try and move on and forge a new path forward. And sitting by the fucking pool at Club Med is your future husband.
Yes. It's I get emotional when I think about it because, everyone has their different view of spirituality or things that are kismet, beshert, however you want to put it. But I'm pretty sure she placed him in my path.
Unbelievable. That is incredible. Yeah. So who chats up who first at the pool?
He claims we have different versions of the story.
Well, you're here and he's not.
Right.
So yours reigns
I
supreme.
remember putting down my script that I remember mine was about the Crusades. And I swear to God, it was like 180 pages or something. And I remember his was called like Tsunami Blue, or, the company he was working with was a little more like action driven, whatever.
Sure.
And so I remember putting down my script, swimming across the pool. And I remember saying to him, is yours as mediocre as mine? Like, that's what I remember, some version of that. But he claims that he came up to me. So I don't know. I mean, memory is a really funny thing. But I just remember, our first encounters just laughing a lot, just being really at ease and laughing. And I always say to people, you don't just want to love the person you're with, you want to like them. So I like my husband so much. I enjoy being in his company. And and we were so young. I mean, we kind of grew up together.
It's crazy.
Which is really crazy.
Yeah.
And in this business with all the twists and turns.
Well, and also the immense amount of travel, which we're going to get to in a minute. But so you start dating, you both come back to LA, and then at what point are we talking about like longer term serious commitments to one another? Are we talking about one day I want to have kids? Like, what are the discussions that you start to get a picture of what your life might look like with this guy?
So I think prior to meeting my husband and after my mom passing, I think I was so committed to knowing that I wanted a family, and that getting married, having a real partnership, and having a family was of the utmost priority. Not that it would overtake, my ambitions in what I wanted to do in my career, but that I wouldn't let it be on the back burner.
Right.
And I actually always tell women and men this, don't expect that if you give your career all your energy and every ounce of your being for 10, 15 years and then wake up and decide, now I want a family, that's just going to happen. Because that's not the way it works. You have to invest in relationships. You have to invest in things you want for them to materialize. But so I came in with a very different perspective. I was like a 22-year-old who had been through so much shit and had such, such a sense of like what was a priority, and my husband was like a normal, now we're dating, and he's like a 24, 25-year-old guy. So
right.
We were not on the same page. And so we dated for a couple of years. We broke up actually for a year and a half. Funny enough, he bought a house right behind my condo.
When he was 25?
Yeah.
Good
so
for him.
He and his brother got like 2 bungalows. And so even when we were broken up, we lived right next door to each other, which was kind of crazy.
That's very funny.
And reconnected in our late 20s. And at that time, I think he knew more for certain what he wanted, and I still wanted the same thing. So I think the timing then was right.
And then how long? So you got married.
We got married when we were 31.
31. And then how long before a kid shows up?
So I was pregnant before our first anniversary. Great. So when we went to celebrate our first anniversary, I was very, very newly pregnant.
I mean, to be clear, at this point, you've been together on and off for almost a decade.
Exactly.
So, like, this isn't... And we're not rushing here.
No. And we didn't know how long it would take to get pregnant, because you just don't know. That's the crazy thing.
You do not know.
I was like, it could take 2 years. It could, and
yeah.
It took 3 months. So we were very lucky.
And so you get pregnant. At this point, where are both of you in your careers?
I am an executive at a production company, and Braden is running, basically, senior running a production company. So we are both executives developing film and television and doing the grind that you do. And prior to getting married, he had produced a really big film and was gone for 6 months. So that was kind of the first time I had experienced, okay, I am in a very committed relationship, but my partner is not here.
Yes.
And that has been the pattern to some extent, and that's been an interesting, challenge for both of us.
And so when you find out you're pregnant, you're both in the grind, what sort of prospect of maternity leave or paternity leave, what do you guys have on the docket to have any sort of breathing room before you're back in the grind?
So this is so interesting. I'm just going to be very candid.
Yeah.
So I am a vice president at a production company, and I produced my first documentary the first Monday in May, and it's an extraordinary film that I'm so proud of, and really a dream come true. We opened the Tribeca Film Festival, and then I go on maternity leave, and then the company that I worked for went under, and so I was laid off. We basically hired a full-time nanny, and then 6 weeks later, I get a call that I am laid off while being on maternity leave. So that was really crazy. And Braden, too, had just made the decision to leave the company that he was at and start his own company. So we are both now with a newborn. We have no idea about kids or anything. We're completely on our own. We do thankfully have Magical Mallory, as I used to call her, who we just hired. But now we have to figure out how are we going to pay for our full-time nanny as my husband builds his business. I just take a moment to say, okay, it's going to be full-on motherhood, which I'm so grateful for, but also dealing with being let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 6 weeks postpartum.
Correct.
And on top of that, you're also experiencing motherhood without your mom.
Yes, which was really, really tough and still is tough.
Yeah.
It's still, you know, it hits me differently at different times. But I like to think that she's there in some way overseeing or, but she is not here.
If she can deliver you a life partner at a pool, she's certainly delivering you other things along the way.
She's very powerful. She was really a force of nature on Earth. So I have to imagine she still is pulling some impressive levers from above.
So this is now the second time in your adult life where you've kind of been thrown off a cliff. You moved to LA following some pretty intense trauma, and then now you enter motherhood and immediately get thrown off a different kind of cliff. Your husband willingly jumps, to be clear. You did not have the choice in the same way.
Yeah. He had been at his previous company for almost 11 years and, a series of events happened that gave him the opportunity to say, okay, what's next? And so I think the universe works in strange ways, and you cannot always have faith in those moments when you are so overwhelmed by stress and pragmatism and all the things. But it really led us in the right direction.
And how is, in that time where you're both super crunched and busy, how are we dividing labor, and how has that sort of changed over the time in the course of your relationship?
So I have to say, my husband Braden is an extraordinary father. He, from the jump, was in it as a co-parent, a true co-parent, changing diapers, cleaning poop, like helping, feeding with bottles and all the things. He's a very invested father. And that was, from when our first daughter was born to our twins. And, I will say in reality, though, I am the sole parent half the year, many years, but when he is there, he is fully invested in all the kid things.
So when is maybe you remember, maybe you don't because it's a blur, but was there you have a baby, your first baby at home, is there a first trip that he goes away for a chunk of time where you're solo with Magical Mallory, the nanny?
Well, yeah. And Magical Mallory leaves at 6 or something, right? So yes, there was a trip. I think he was shooting in, oh my God, I can't remember. I think it was Winnipeg. He's actually shooting something now in Winnipeg, but I think it was Winnipeg. And I remember Olivia, my oldest, had 105 fever. Okay. And I am by myself and it is nighttime and the nanny has left. And I am thinking, oh my God, what do I do? Am I supposed to go to the emergency? I am just freaking out. And I remember calling him, and he's in Canada, and he probably had just wrapped for the day. It was late, and freaking out. And we had an argument. I think, in hindsight, obviously he felt very helpless. And I think I hung up on him because I was so frustrated. I was scared and frustrated with the situation.
Yeah.
He had clearly not done anything wrong, but I was really freaked out.
Yeah.
And it turned out she had roseola. So for any
classic high fever, low consequence type of virus.
But you don't know that until the
you know.
rash erupts. For any newer parents with children under 5 who sometimes have this. All 3 of my daughters actually had this. So that was really scary. And I've had several incidents like that I've had to deal with alone. And I definitely don't sleep well when he's gone, because I have the constant feeling before I go to bed that I have to be like super ready, because if anything happens, I am responsible for these 3 humans, and I have to figure out how to care for the one that needs acute attention while getting the rest in order. Like these, I'm even like producing in my sleep sometimes, because it's, it's hard when you're one person and 3 kiddos. Yeah.
Like, what's the fallback plan?
Yeah. And it's been tricky.
And how old was Olivia when you decided you were ready to try and add another member to the team?
Olivia, I think we started talking about, I wasn't ready for at least like, I think at year 2, when she was 2, I said, okay, all right, maybe we'll start thinking about this now. I could have waited longer, frankly. And I think it's always crazy when women ask other women, like, "Oh, are you going to have another baby? Or are you thinking about another one?" And I always think it's like such an inappropriate question, because I don't understand why anyone else's family planning is of your concern.
I've thought a lot about this, Tracy, and I do think it's like I don't know you very well, or I do, and I'm just trying to come up with something to talk to you about. But people don't realize that it's not like asking about the weather. You have no idea somebody's fertility journey, somebody's plans, somebody's financial situation. And so it's the same when people ask, oh, is it a girl or a boy? For me, where I'm just like, you don't know what somebody went through to get to the point of being pregnant. Maybe they don't fucking care, because maybe they just want a healthy baby in this world.
Exactly. So I feel like you. I think those are really crazy things. But yeah, so it took me a while for my body to heal. And also I started another job when Olivia was 1. And I will say, of course, the first week I went back to work, she was rushed in an ambulance to Cedars with a febrile seizure. So talk about going back to work, trying to have your stuff together and be a professional. And
and for those of you who don't know, a febrile seizure is literally a seizure that is precipitated by having a high fever.
That too.
But if you don't know that that's what's happening, they're terrifying. And the only way to really understand what's going on is to have a full diagnostic workup, right?
Yeah. So that was terrifying. And I just, I think many women can experience this. When you are at work, you need to be focused on your work, right? You are getting paid to do a job. But when you have children, those children are your children 24/7, and their needs and their well-being live in your heart, in your head, in your nervous system. So to get a call from my neighbor saying there's a fire truck outside of your house, is everything okay? And then getting a freaked out call from the nanny saying, we're on the way to Cedars, was very, very destabilizing. So, and to top it off, and one of the things that made me decide to go out on my own was that when that happened, I ran to Cedars, and thank God she was okay, because febrile seizures happen, but they are not life-threatening for the most part. And my boss, I remember saying, well, are you going to be back here for the 3 o'clock
Oh
meeting?
my God.
And
does this boss have children?
Stepchildren.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, all those relationships are, I never judge, meaningful relationships too. But I remember I was in a state of shock, and then I thought, I need to go back for this meeting. And it's something that I haven't talked about a lot, but I remember saying to Braden, because I just started this new job, can you go home with Olivia? I'm going to go do this meeting. And I remember just being really just at odds with that decision.
Yeah.
And that was something that was very pivotal in when I decided to not renew the second year of my contract for that job and go out on my own.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody else about this, and so much greatness, I think, for a lot of parents who are very involved in parenting their children is that pivotal moment where, like, so many entrepreneurs, Little Sleepies, whatever, all these companies that are started by people who are parents of young children specifically,
Yeah.
who realize that the conventions that we have set up societally to work don't actually work for parents. And so if you have the means and the privilege to be able to take the space and make a path for yourself, it's a very attractive proposition. Scary, but attractive, because at least then you can be in control and nobody's going to ask you if you're back for the fucking 3:00 meeting after your kid was in the hospital.
Exactly. And I think too, I think it just gives you a lot of insight. We don't always have choice in who we work alongside or who we work for. And I think you're always going to be in situations where conditions are not exactly ideal, right? So you can't be Pollyanna about things. But I am very mindful at this point in my life about who I'm collaborating with, who I'm working with. Because if I say, you know what, my kid's in the hospital, I am going to email you everything. I'm going to make sure this person is on that Zoom. But right now, I need to be with my family. And what I need the response to be from the other person is,
okay,
we got this. You go take care of your family.
Yeah.
Right? So that's been a really important lesson for me. And, you know, there have been opportunities that have come my way for certain jobs that are, you know, high level, interesting, prestigious, but would mean that I am not able to be a present parent for my 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And so those are things that, you know, I remember wrestling with an opportunity for a job like a year ago. And I was actually I thought I could do it. In my mind, I'm like, oh, I can do it all. I can like run this company in New York, and I could do it from LA, and I can take care of the girls, and even with Braden gone. And I called my best friend in Atlanta, and she said, do you really think you can like do this? And I was like, that's a really good question. I was like, because you're saying that to me and you're asking me that question, I said, maybe I can. And I decided not to put myself up for the job.
I literally just finished going through the same thing where I was like, I'm going to commute to Arizona 3 days a week and it's going to be fine and we're going to figure it out. And my husband's been super supportive. And then every day I was crying about the prospect of doing this thing that's like theoretically the thing I've always wanted.
Right.
And I was like, why am I crying all the time? Maybe it's because change is hard. It's like, no, I actually just don't want to miss those days with my children.
Yeah.
That's why I'm crying. And I went and I saw it and I was just like, I can't leave my family. Like, I just can't. I practiced it, I tried it, and I couldn't do it. But different to you, anytime somebody said, are you sure? Like good friends, are you sure you can do this? I got super defensive. I was just like, fuck you. I'm so sick of people telling me what I can and cannot do. Right. I had to come to the realization totally on my own.
Well, it's interesting because the reason I really, you know, just ripped off the Band-Aid and applied to USC was I remember standing on the quad at Emory and I had decided, okay, I'm not going to apply to law school. My film professor has told me about this extraordinary program. And I'm only going to apply to this program. It's the best of its kind, and I'm going to give it a shot. And I called my dad. You know, I'm like, I don't know, 21, 22 years old, senior in college. And I said, you know what, Dad? I'm not going to be an attorney. I think I really want to be a producer. And I'm going to apply to this program and see what happens. And he said, that's nice, but do you really think you'll be successful? And so I remember that feeling in that moment, which was the FU. That's all I needed to kind of propel me into that next realm. But now as a parent, when I think about what he said, I'm less defensive because I think what he was saying, which maybe he couldn't articulate at that time, was this is a really, really competitive, crazy, complicated political industry.
Yeah.
So by him saying that wasn't necessarily doubting me, but saying, all right, like, just know what you're up against. I still think he could have said something different. But But it's interesting how those are the moments that sometimes either push us out of that place of fear to take that chance, not knowing what the outcome is, or make us pause and say, am I going to be happy? Am I still going to be able to be present for the people I love? So I think it can work both ways.
Yeah. And to your point, I think the messenger and the sort of interlocutor in the conversation matters massively.
Exactly. Like when my best friend Erin tells me things, she knows me so well, and she knows sometimes I can be defensive. When she says something, I listen. When she says something, and when my husband responds to something, usually I'm less defensive with her, funny enough.
Sure.
Of course. But I really, when they give me feedback, I really take it to heart.
It's important to know who those people are, I think, for you, because sometimes the people you think it's going to be, maybe it isn't, and then you almost surprise yourself by the reaction you have to feedback from people who you do really like, love, and otherwise care about.
Yeah.
So I want to get to when the next chapter of children enter the picture.
Oh, right.
So let's get to it. So
okay, right. So Olivia is now like 2.5. Mm-hmm. And I say to Braden, so, should we think about having a second? And I think he was pretty happy with one, knowing we both have these very busy, demanding jobs, lives, etc.
And you're an only child, and he has a brother.
A sibling, yeah, he has a brother. So I say, well, I think we want Olivia to be well-adjusted. And I remember what it was like losing my mom and not having any siblings and really, feeling isolated in that experience. So he was like, okay. And so we tried for a second, and I had a miscarriage, which was, harder than I thought it would be, which is a whole nother episode and topic. But
once you get pregnant once, you're like, I'm a fertile myrtle. I got no problems. Miscarriages are for other people, and then they come for you. I mean, I had one as well.
Yeah,
second time.
I think I just didn't know. I think, I haven't really read any books on I'm kind of someone who researches immensely on certain things, and then other things sometimes I don't read anything about. So I just, we went through that experience, and it was challenging. And then I think we waited another 3 months, and we tried again. And we went to the doctor, and I still remember my hands were so sweaty when I was, waiting to look at the ultrasound, and I couldn't even look at the screen because I was just afraid that there wouldn't be a heartbeat. And so I'm looking at the wall, and it's a small room, and Braden is like on a little stool against the wall. And the ultrasound tech who had seen me through my first pregnancy said, "Oh shit." And I knew it wasn't bad because she would have never said something. She would have been
fucking fired for that. Yeah.
She was so reserved the last time. And then my doctor starts kind of chuckling, and he goes, "There are 2 in there." And I mean, my husband literally looked like he left his body. I had never seen anything like that. It was like he left his body, and I think he just saw like 3 weddings, 3 bat mitzvahs, 3 of everything. And that was really crazy. Now, I will say, prior to that appointment, I was so nauseous. And I was nauseous with my first daughter. But I was that much more nauseous. And for a sec, I thought, oh my God, what if there's 2? What if it's just
So you had the thought.
I just had the thought. And I surely wasn't going to say anything, especially not to Braden. And so that was really crazy. And then, several weeks later, we found out it was 2 girls. So he was going to be a girl dad times 3. So that was nuts. We had to buy a new house, and we moved into the new house when I was 8 months pregnant. And I was, I delivered the twins at 38 weeks, which is full term for twins. And I worked on a documentary series for HBO until 37 weeks.
Tracy, you're a petite lady. So I'm just imagining It's a lot of baby.
It was a lot of baby when I used.
How are you doing anything at 37 weeks?
It was kind of
crazy. Do you
crazy.
have a forklift for the belly?
We didn't have a nanny because Olivia was in preschool. So I remember like waddling up the hill to pick her up at preschool, and like I just remember parents looking at me like, "Oh, that poor woman," and yeah, it was a lot. My back went out twice, which was really intense, and yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I delivered the twins in September. So for any of the people listening who live in Los Angeles, where it was 114 degrees in the city last week, it was so hot. It was so hot. And I was just ready to have these children outside of my body.
And what was that experience like? Because now you've got 3 kids all of a sudden, from 1 to 3. And your husband's still traveling?
Yeah. I mean, Braden, thankfully has had, a really interesting and, successful career where he's been making lots of cool movies and other things. So yeah, he's still traveling and out of town, and with some gaps, here and there. But yeah, so that was intense. And I remember the twins it was like after the night nurse had left. We were like, okay, well, we've just spent, a college tuition on a night nurse. I mean, I'm kidding, but as anyone knows.
Not that kidding,
it's really expensive. So we hit the end of our night nurse shift, and it was like a week later. And with twins, you have to let them get on their own schedule, right? So until they're a certain weight and time, you can't sync them up. So one may be waking up an hour before or after the other one. So I was basically up like every hour and a half to 2 hours until they were kind of sleeping for the same 4 to 6 hour stretches. So I remember rolling over to Braden one night, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And I remember him like pausing, and he said, "We don't have a choice." Yeah. I was like, oh my God, okay. And then I called my very dear friend Ellen, who has twin girls, identical twins, who are my older daughter's age. So she was a couple, obviously, years ahead of me. And I remember like being so cracked out, sitting in the kitchen, calling her at like 9:00 at night. And I was like, I think they were around like 3 months old. And I was like, this is so hard. This is so hard. And I was like, I don't know if I can physically do this. And she said, I know this is a really crazy time. You will get through this. And I'll always remember that phone call.
The pep talk.
Yeah. And from another twin mom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, and then on top of that, my older daughter was in preschool. So she was bringing home preschool germs.
Of course.
And this was, let's say, 2018, right? So pre-COVID. And so the twins, who were born full term, etc., thank God, no complications, were getting very sick every single month. So they were getting crazy high fevers, all these things. So every single month, on top of their wellness check, I was at the pediatrician. And so it was so intense to the point I had to go to an immunologist and make sure everything was okay. So that first year was really a test in many ways, like kind of like SEAL training.
And did it ever happen when the kids were young, where you were gone and Braden was on duty at home?
When they were young, I'm trying to think. Definitely not. I'm trying to think like work stuff and what was I doing? I don't think...
even now. Like, are there situations where you're gone and he's on duty? And what does that look like?
Yes. Like, well, I remember when I was producing the Paris Hilton documentary, and Paris, who I adore, she's a really incredible woman and now a wonderful mother. She kind of was like a night owl. So she would really come alive around like 11 o'clock. So that shooting schedule, like sometimes I was getting home at like 3 a.m. or later. And yes, he was home and he was like putting all the kids to bed and doing all the things. And also, yeah. And I even remember, so I just recently produced this Diane von Furstenberg documentary. And I remember when we were shooting in Venice, in Italy, a couple of years ago, Braden was finishing up the first season of Tulsa King, and I had to fly to Italy, and it was the kids' first week of school, and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I was like, I need to be in Italy. You're supposed to be wrapping this series. The kids need one parent at home. That's our thing. We always try to have one parent at home, unless it's like a couple days or something. And so he left set early, a couple days early, came home, and then I flew to Venice. And then he was home that whole week.
And are those conversations tense or easy breezy when you guys are doing the negotiating?
I think it's hard when we're both on a project and that project requires our attention and commitment as producers, because for the most part, he and I are kind of lead producers.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because in the world of producers, it could mean so many things.
Correct.
So I was going to actually have you walk through, in your world, what do those functions look like? Your necklace says that you're in charge.
I am in charge.
And I 100% believe that.
This is DVF's motto and movement, the In Charge movement, if anyone wants to look it up.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes. So I like to wear it. I like when people see it. I like to reflect it back to others. Like it's a whole thing. I also like feeling connected to her. I feel very connected to her, even though I haven't seen her in a moment. But that's a whole nother thing. But as I tell people, being in her orbit and producing that film, I just learned so much about myself, and I was so inspired by her, and that was a whole nother journey. But from the role, in terms of the role of a producer that I play, I would say 95% of the time I'm on something from day one, from developing the idea, collaborating with the talent, organizing all the deals, raising the money, and then actually producing the film or the series from soup to nuts, being involved obviously in post and marketing and release. So the whole gamut. So a lot of my projects, I'm involved for sometimes, 2 to 3 years. From start to finish.
Would you say producing, and in the type of producing that you're doing, is similar or transferable skills to parenting and motherhood?
100%. Like 100%. It was funny. My nanny was saying to me the other day, I was like getting ready to grab the kids to school, packing snacks because we had to go straight to the pediatrician. And then I was going to a premiere with Braden for one of his friends that we were going to support. And I'm like, doing all the things, plus wrapping their gifts for their birthday, the twins' birthday this Thursday. And my nanny's like, I really impressed, like how you do it all. And I said to her, I was like, Barbara, that's so kind of you. I said, thank you so much. Cause I said, I really, whether it's picking out the perfect, like, Kuromi keychain at Miniso, which is the store that they're obsessed with, or making sure I have like streamers to put on their door when they go to bed so that when they wake up in the morning for their birthday. I remember how special my mom made my birthdays, but it was nice to have someone say,
see it.
I see you.
Yeah.
So yes. So when it comes to producing, I think one of the greatest skills that is transferable to both is being proactive. So I constantly am thinking ahead. Sometimes that's a detriment and you want to really be living in the present. But when you have 3 kids and you work and you have other interests and stuff, you have to have your shit together. So I put everything in my calendar. I'm very responsive. You
do get back to a text message very quickly.
I know. And sometimes
we love that.
Sometimes people say, "Oh, you should wait. Maybe there's like power."
We don't have to.
Who
has time for that?
I know. Listen,
a man said that,
probably. And I do think there are some times when you are dealing with more nuanced political situations that I really do say, and I've learned this
like
from
a negotiation
my husband,
or something.
Give yourself a moment.
Right.
Receive the information.
Take a pause.
You don't have to respond immediately if it's something that's more, charged or complicated. When it comes to like getting stuff done, I am all about being responsive, collaborating. Again, I look at my nanny and anyone else that works as our family, it's like team. This is our team.
And I noticed, when I was looking at your body of work, a lot of it is getting deep into the stories of women.
Very much so.
And portraying these women as full people, not just sort of one-dimensional. I mean, DVF obviously being the most recent great example, the complexity of these women. How much do you see in sort of telling these people's stories that either their own parents' influence on them and the picture that is made, or them being parents themselves has sort of shaped a big part of their story?
It's really interesting, I think, the way you pose the question. I think our parents are the first people who influence how we see the world, how we feel about ourselves. All of those things can shift, but our first experiences are what our parents impart to us, what they show us. So I think all of the subjects that I've covered, their parents have been monumentally influential. Obviously, especially with DVF, Diane's mother was not even supposed to be able to have children, having just been liberated from Auschwitz. And then, Diane was born, basically, a year later. And that was a miracle. And so her connection to her mother was so much a part of telling this story. So honoring Diane's legacy and thus honoring her mother's legacy. I think with Paris, obviously, too, her connection with her mother and her parents and reconnection now with them, now that she's a mother, is really interesting. I did a film on Helen Maroulis, who's a 3-time Olympic medalist who suffered a traumatic brain injury after being the first woman to win gold. We followed her back on her journey to physical and mental health to Tokyo. Her mother and father have played a huge role in her life in shaping who she is. I always think what's most interesting is when any person takes what they've been shown and given and then starts to chart their own path. And I think for me, having lost my mom so young, it was really important, when I went to therapy after she died, to separate what were the behaviors that I learned in my relationship with her, right? That might have been projected from her own childhood, from our dynamic, and what were the behaviors that were truly going to become my own, and how did I want to differentiate? And I think that's one of the biggest life lessons that I've had, that you can acknowledge dysfunction and you can acknowledge codependency, but they don't have to inform who you're going to be and the family and relationships you're going to create.
I love that. I love that. And that's a lot of really hard work to do. And you started doing that work at a young age.
Yeah. I just decided that if I was going to be a mother and a partner to someone, it was really crucial to work out all the issues that I would not have the opportunity to work out with my mom. I mean, she was the most important person in my life, but there was also dysfunction and codependence, because when you are a child of parents who go through a very, very tumultuous divorce and you live, right? You live with one parent.
Yep.
You are that parent's advocate. You are their sword, their shield, their everything. And it gets a bit, confusing and complicated. So, I did a lot of work to honor how much she gave me, and also say, these things that happened were not the best for me as a child. And so I'm going to try and break that cycle. And so when I have my children, or when I'm a wife and partner, I'm not going to bring those same patterns into this relationship. I mean, things always crop up. We're human, but I'm very cognizant of that.
So are there moments where you're with the girls and something happens and you do a little self high five because you're like, doing this a different way, and this feels really good because I know that I didn't get here accidentally?
Yes, I think there are moments like that. And it's interesting because I recently went back to therapy a month ago. So I
welcome back.
I hadn't been in 15 years, and I thought, oh my goodness, I am so overwhelmed recently, with my husband being gone and working so hard on his end and solo parenting and working. And I just felt like I really needed support, and I needed to be able to start getting into the issues that I'm dealing with at this stage of my life, so that I could continue to put that oxygen mask on, as I think we need to do as women and parents. So I could be a better parent and be better to myself, because I'm so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And that's been, even in the past month, I've just noticed a big shift in the way I'm able to respond to things that I was having a really short fuse with in the past 6 months.
And this is the same woman that you saw when your mom passed,
yes.
right?
So I called her out of the blue, and I said, here's where I'm at, and I really could use some support and all the things. And oh my goodness, it's really reassuring to know you can work with someone who already knows your whole backstory.
Yes.
It's exhausting to have to go into
I think
all
that's
that stuff.
some people's biggest barrier to starting therapy is that initial download where you're like, I don't want to have to give you all this shit.
Exactly. And our memory changes over time. So to have to kind of repaint that picture, it's going to be different than what it was. So anyway, so she thankfully was able to carve out some time, and she is just so brilliant and compassionate and holds me accountable when I say certain things and want to gloss over them. So I think, any way in which women can find a place to reflect and be held accountable, and not held accountable in a judgmental way, but held accountable even in the fact that, are you taking care of yourself?
Well, this is my biggest issue that I have with my therapist is I joke that she's too nice to me, because she's always like, you need to be taking more time for you. You need to be taking more space. You need to let other people do more for you. And it's it is so kind and so nice, but I'm like, but what's the note?
Right.
What's the feedback? What could I be working harder on? And it's you could be working harder on chilling the fuck out.
Well, exactly. I have so many people people who are very close to me and know me, because I've realized recently I'm a very sensitive person, and I'm very emotional, but I'm actually pretty stoic, and I don't show it. But I didn't realize that. So people...
Meaning you didn't realize that you weren't showing it, or you didn't realize that you were feeling it?
I think I didn't realize that I kind of just... I kind of just go, I don't operate in victim mentality ever.
Yes.
And I kind of just I just keep it moving.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, sometimes I'm dealing with some really difficult things. And so it's only the people closest to me that know that. And they're always saying, oh my goodness, you're so hard on yourself. You should be less hard on yourself. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet. If I do, I'll let you know.
I was about to say, give me a call when you figure it out.
I think it's something that psychologically and institutionally is in our psyche as women. And so that I think that undoing or loosening of that judgment, I don't know. I think that work would also have to come from a cultural level, because I don't think our culture, I think specifically in America, supports women is an understatement, especially with everything going on right now, but supports mothers, whether they be working or not. We don't have the support in terms of healthcare, in terms of childcare, in terms of maternal leave, paternal leave, all of those things. It's very few and far between. When you hear about these after birth centers, there's probably a different name,
Korea
or Germany,
yes,
where women really are held and nurtured. And, especially for me, who didn't have a mom when I had my children, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have some support in all of those ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because I actually really enjoy forming bonds with women in their 50s through 70s. I really gravitate towards women in that age range because I love being around women who have more wisdom and give less fucks, if you will.
Yeah.
And able to say that, I always think like the failing's not a failing, but it's an experience that you have that's going to give you more perspective.
Yeah.
Because I've had a lot of situations that have not ended up maybe in the ideal way I want it to, like most of us. But I'm like, I really try and think hard about like, what has that taught me?
There's one more section of question that I need to unpack, and before I release you from this closet.
Yes.
Your relationship with your husband. You're gone from each other a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You like each other and love each other.
Yes.
What do you guys do to like continue to build your bond and connection outside of your parenting duties, just given how busy you are? And how are you checking in with each other? How do you remember that you like each other?
So it's interesting that you say that, because since we've had kids, a lot of our conversations are like organizational and tactical, right? Yeah. And it's like even tonight, we have back to school night. And thank God he's home for the whole week, because we have 3 kids. And I'm like, how am I supposed to be in 3 classrooms at once? I can't. So I've already strategized, okay, we'll both go to our 4th graders teacher, because we feel like we probably really need to hear all of that, because that's like real school. It's like 4th grade.
Yeah.
Not to diminish our extraordinary kindergartners. And then we'll divide and conquer, and I'll take one kinder class, he'll take the other. I've already said to him, I really need you to report actual details to me and not gloss over anything, which is so obnoxious.
Feels like he should maybe be doing a voice memo.
Actually, it's a great idea.
Just do a cheeky record. Yeah.
Just a little record thing. So anyway, that is a challenge that I experienced when we had kids. Staying connected. I am the planner in the relationship. So when he is home, I'm always making sure that we are going out and having dinner somewhere fun, or I got tickets to go see the War on Drugs at the Hollywood Bowl, and we're going to go do that in October. Or Wednesday, we're both carving out time this week, and we're gonna go buy some new plants for the house.
Sexy.
It's
romance.
It sounds really silly, but I am happy if we're just together. We don't have to do anything crazy exciting. Another thing we do is we try to get away for 48 to 72 hours when our nanny can stay over, and we'll like go to Palm Springs, we'll go to Santa Barbara, we'll do these kind of shorter trips where we can just hear each other like at a table, have dinner, and just kind of breathe a little bit.
We have not managed to do that yet.
Your kids are younger, you know? So we actually hadn't gone out to dinner in a long time, because he would come home and we'd have 36 hours as a family.
Yeah.
So he would feel very torn if we went out to dinner, the 2 of us.
Right, because he doesn't want to miss anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's been tricky. We probably talk a couple times a day. So we usually I'll call him from the car whenever I'm driving, and we'll just catch up. And then we usually FaceTime. He'll FaceTime with the girls, every night, and we'll do that. So that's how we've been able to make it work. But it's, it's hard. It's hard because he'll come home. I mean, he's home for a whole week this week. But one of our twins said, Daddy, how long are you home? Are you home for like the whole week? That was a big deal, which is kind of hard to hear. But that's the life we chose. We're both producers. And so in Success, at least right now, because he and I are the types of producers that kind of are seeing the whole thing through, that means he's gone. And possibly gone very far overseas next year, which I am mentally gearing up for. But that'll be.
We'll bring you muffins for breakfast.
I'll take all the muffins. But I think it's a matter of trying to maintain empathy, trying to maintain knowing that if your partner is away a lot, they probably don't want to be sleeping in a hotel or a rented house. And when he was in Atlanta for 5 months, I try to remember, as stressed out as I was doing bedtime by myself every single night, he's coming home to a house by himself, which is super lonely after working a 16-hour day. So I think if you can kind of put yourself in the shoes of your partner, if you know that they are genuinely trying and meeting you halfway and you're doing the best you can, I think that's helpful.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, and you're also going to be resentful and you're going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
And there are times when I just want to jump out of my skin and it feels too much. And you have to lean into that and call your friends and have very unfiltered, frustrated conversations.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having an unfiltered conversation with us in the closet. This was such a treat.
It was my absolute pleasure.
Everyone, there's a lot to put in the show notes today, so keep a lookout for all of Tracy's amazing projects and where you can find some of her things showing. So thank you so much for being in the closet, and Godspeed with 3 wild girls in your house.
Thank you for having me, and pray for me when they're teenagers.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at mutha, mutha.life for a daily look at all things Mutha. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mutha Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.